Okay, today we are going to watch round 8 of the Lost Olympiad, Stockholm 1937. Oops. So, round 8 was played on August 5th. And the game that they choose to represent round 8 is Rejewski from United States against Goffin from Suomi, Finland. Rejewski is white and he played d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e7. Goffin is not interested in the supposedly equalizing line c5. This is c5, okay? Which would bring to the semi-Tarrasch, right? But it's more interesting in the orthodox defense, which honestly seems a good opening too, right? e3. However, Rejewski does not oblige. This deceptively quiet line had been used in the 1880s by Zukertort, famous player that played the match with Steinitz for the World Championship, who got some far from quiet middle games out of it, old enough to be a novelty, said Rejewski. Najdorf subsequently made use of it. So all the top players were obviously actually looking at their each other games. So black continue with castle, bishop d3, c5, castle, knight c6, b3. After which it is no longer possible to transpose into a queen's gambit accepted. b6, bishop b2, bishop b7, and queen e2. Now black takes the strategic decision to give white a pair of hanging pawns. Okay, so what does he play? He plays c takes d4, e takes d4, d takes c4, and b takes c4. And these are the hanging pawns, okay? How does black continue here with queen c7? Now, you must notice one thing. Could black continue with knight takes d4? It seems is not a good idea. Let me tell you why. You should, however, pause the video and try to find out why knight takes d4, it's a mistake. So, for those who pause the video, here is the answer. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and here you say, but you see, I gain a pawn. Well, not really. Knight d5, right? And what do you do here? Let's say that you do something like queen c5, right? Bishop takes f6. And here there are various possibilities. Let's say that you take with this, that is queen e4. Okay? So this is a big problem for black, right? Because there is a possible checkmate here. If he doesn't checkmate and try to defend like this, obviously this and also this is jumping out. I mean it's clearly a bad situation for black. Let me put the position back as it was. Okay, I put the position back as it was, but I think I would like to make a reasoning about this. Today we don't consume anymore games through books. We consume them through YouTube, for example. And of course, today Olympiad, the chess Olympiad, maybe it's 4,000 games to watch, so it's impossible to watch 4,000 games, right? So it makes sense again to have a book which select the game that you want to show you because the author is probably a title player that knows what he's doing, has watched all the games, maybe also fast, but he was able to extract the interesting games. And this is what this book does, in my opinion. That's why I like it. That's why I even got a chess set from that time. This is the same chess set that was used for that Olympiad. So after the hanging pawns, black plays queen c7 because we have seen knight takes d4 is a disaster. a3, rook f d8, rook f d1, and bishop f8. With ultra caution, Goffin overprotects g7. But this very caution gives Rejewski just the time he needs to start playing. Black is no doubt thinking comfortably of the hanging pawns as the familiar long-term liability. But the present game is a good illustration of the fact that they can sometimes be turned to such good offensive account in the short term that long-term considerations are irrelevant. So sound the judges have said, any player who is looking for a real fight can well afford to accept the risk inherent in the hanging pawns. And Rejewski in the 1930s was always looking for a real fight. Rejewski is a player that he was already master level when he was maybe 9 or 10, so it's incredible. He was really gifted. Unfortunately, the family didn't capitalize on that, otherwise he could have been an amazing world champion. So in this position, if you are white, what would you do? Because sometimes also positions that are quiet, that there are no tactics, must make you think, and this type of position is where you actually learn chess. d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5. Obviously this is a defender of h7, so it's kind of very important piece. Knight takes d5, c takes d5. And again, the d-pawn is taboo. What happens if black plays this? Okay? Obviously, you can see it immediately, because once you play this, check. If it takes, this is gone, right? So this is kind of easy tactic to see. And this is also why you watch games, because these are real tactics. It's not something made up. It's something that you will encounter in your own games too, right? That's the point. Okay, knight e7. Obviously here there are also some ideas about what happens if a knight goes here, so eventually if you buy the book you will see. What does white play now? White plays an amazing move, a move that makes it worth it to watch this game. Notice that this move was impossible to play up to the moment this bishop had control of the square. So white played d6, boom. So much for the weak hanging pawns and the weak isolated d-pawn. Now black has only the choice between major and minor disasters. Obviously you cannot take with the queen because there is still this theme, bishop takes h7, right? Try to think about it. What are you going to do? And then, of course, if you take with the rook, what is white going to play? Try to think about it, okay? Rook takes d6, bishop e5, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, rook takes d3, bishop takes c7, rook takes f3, and g takes f3. So now, after all the fight, the dust settles on the ground and we can calculate who has it better, right? And here the author writes what a demanding game of chess can be. What a demanding game chess can be. Goffin had played the last few moves the best way, and now white, after beautifully dominating the middle game, finds himself with rook against knight. It is true. But a pawn down, and with his pawn split and isolated. So the problem is that yes, white has got the rook advantage, but here there is isolated pawn, isolated double pawn, isolated pawn. So maybe it seems not so good. But in reality, if this pawn want to advance, they find themselves here. If the pawns want to create a pass pawn, this must go, right? So it's kind of interesting. Obviously, again, Rejewski was a master level player when he was like 10, 11 years old. So I don't think it's really difficult for him to win this kind of endgame. Knight f5, e4, rook e8, king f1, and bishop c5, attacking that. Black has apparently placed all his pieces on good squares, yet against the two white rooks there is little more they can do. And so let's see the end of the game. Rook d7, very important to get the 7th rank. g6, rook e1, when you are in a material advantage you want to exchange pieces. King f8, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, and now there is rook d8, check. King e7, rook a8, king d7, and rook takes a7, king c6, bishop g3, bishop e7, king e2, h5, king d3, f6, bishop f4, g5, bishop d2, and bishop d6. Now there is a good move by white. You could pause and think for a minute and see if you can find it. The good move is rook f7. Now the problem is that black cannot take on h2 because otherwise here becomes a mess, right? So, and all these pawns are gone, so it's not a good idea. So he plays bishop e5, but bishop c3, knight d6, rook h7, and knight b7. Obviously this knight is trying to kill the pawn on a4. Let's see what happens here. Bishop takes e5, f takes e5, rook takes h5, knight c5, check, king c2, knight takes a4, rook takes g5, and here black gave up, probably because he realized that this is going to be a queen in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, while here he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the king is in front. So I think that's clear why black resigned. Once more, I think this is a great book to have. The amount of games that they found is reasonable, and they were lost, many of them, but the author found nearly probably 200, and he chose the best. So we really have a chance to see what happened in that Olympiad. I hope you will enjoy the next round, which is round 9.